Live from a studio apartment, this is Misinformation. Thank you for joining us tonight as I check my background. Got some workout clothes on my bike. Perfect. How's everyone doing? A little bit lower. Gotta get that pocket square on the screen. What's up, everyone? Big news tonight. So we got Iran is the major story. Trump now extending the deadline. It went from 48 hours initial ultimatum to then they were negotiating. Now it's 10 days. We're going to get into that stuff. There's some crazy news from out of New York. Another person was pushed onto a subway track, right? This time it was a Army veteran, I believe, who has died. So I'm sure that the guy who did it will be released in about a week. We'll get into that stuff in a second. But first, a joke. I've written one joke. All right. Well, Trump has issued a new 10-day deadline for Iran before he destroys their energy plants. Yeah, the extension is just to allow heaven to restock virgins. Yeah. They're running pretty low. Yeah, Iran has asked if we can sacrifice some male Kamala voters just to help restock. Not that bad. It's a discount joke for tonight. I was at work today. I'm always at work before this show. But anyways, there's your free joke. Hope you enjoyed. So let's get into the news. Let's pull it up. All right. Teleprompter. Hopefully this pops up. Yeah, there we go. Okay, so big news out of Iran today. Trump issuing a new deadline. Brand new deadline just dropped. How about that? Here's Trump's tweet about it. As per Iranian government request, he always makes sure to mention that they are the ones begging him for the deal. He's not doing it on his own. He says, please let this statement serve to represent that I am pausing the period of energy plant destruction by 10 days to Monday, April 6th, 2026 at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. This sounds like a straight, hostage situation, the way he frames it, right? Of course, that's for maximum leverage. Talks are ongoing, and despite erroneous statements to the contrary by the fake news media and others, they are going very well. Thank you for your attention to this matter. I love how these sound just more and more like memos. It's got the hostage vibe, but also just like an office memo, to it. So how did we get here, right? It seemed like just a week ago, everyone was talking about Iran possibly turning into a forever war, and they didn't want that. I mean, a week ago, we were in a war, right? And now we're not so much. Now we're in a negotiation. Do you see that? And that's the beauty of what Trump's done. I went into this in the last couple of shows, but basically, he created the framework for a negotiation to happen out of thin air. The brilliant thing about Trump is he sees that everything in life is a negotiation, This is something that I realized a while back, too. If you're looking at relationships, for instance, right? What are you doing when you're meeting a girl, right? What's the girl thinking about when she's sizing you up, right? She's trying to negotiate, whether or not you're a good deal for her, whether you're a good deal for them, right? That's a negotiation. Jobs are a negotiation. Pretty much everything in life can be reframed as a negotiation, right? So what did he do when he wasn't able to negotiate with Iran? Well, he comes out and this was over the weekend, he issues this big ultimatum to them, right? We need to get to the negotiating table and they need to accept the deal that I'm offering them, or I'm going to destroy their power plants. They have 48 hours to respond, right? So out of nowhere, he creates this imaginary leverage that did not exist before, this threat to destroy their power plants, which would obviously be a huge escalation. Now, Iran responds, right? They issue their own threats of their own. They come back. He walks it back, right? And he says, okay, now I'm in contact with them. We're negotiating. They're rejecting the deal that I'm offering, but I'm going to give them an extension. I think he made it 5 days initially, right? And there was this whole like news about he issued, Iran came out and rejected this 15-point proposal from the U.S. calling it excessive. So what's happened there? Basically, these Iranian leaders went from a position of being, we're in a war, we have to fight to the death, we need to run in and just kamikaze style basically suicide ourselves to try to do something, to a position of, no, that deal's not good enough, we're going to reject the offer, right? It's too excessive. So Trump effectively made them think past the sale, which was the sale was, we're in negotiations, all right? This is the same thing that he did with tariffs, right? And no matter how many times he does it, the media will always come out initially and go, oh my God, it's crazy. He issued a 48-hour ultimatum and he's doing this, he's doing that. How could he ever think this will work? And then suddenly, what do you get? Just like he did with the tariffs, right? He comes out with a big opening bid, freaks people out, right? He gives a deadline, but then he extends it once they're more willing to talk. So now he's got Iran apparently in a position where they believe that they're now in a negotiation. And so he's giving them 10 more days to essentially work it out. What's helping him a little bit more than tariffs, so with tariffs, the leverage that he uses is financial, right? Let me pull up the chat too while I'm here. It's basically, we're going to penalize you with these financial incentives unless you make concessions to the U.S. that he wants, right? I don't even know where the chat is. Maybe it's gone. Chat. I don't know if I could pull it. Okay, we'll skip for now. But in this case, the leverage that he's creating is, we're going to kill you, right? Bombs, which is a lot tougher to deal with. This was actually, I think this was Trump. He was talking about the Iranian leaders. I think this was on Fox maybe earlier today. And he was saying, we're going to hold off on killing the rest of them. We know where they're at, but we're going to hold off on killing them for now. How's that for negotiation?
They then named another one. We knocked them out, and we knocked out part of the third group. And we're just holding for the rest. We know where they all are. And it's one country that does not want to be, you have very few people want to be the leader. You know, everyone wants to be president of the United States. Everyone wants to be president or whatever, prime minister of a certain country. There are not a lot of takers to be the head of Iran right now. I will tell you, they're all fighting not to. We don't want that position. But they asked me if they would, Kaylee, importantly, they said to me,
imagine that job ad on Iranian Craigslist. Seeking new Ayatollah. Very temporary position. Starting pay low. We're out of oil money.
Nicely through my people. Could we have more time? Because we're talking about tomorrow night, which is pretty. They then named another one. We knocked them out, and we knocked out part of the third.
That's crazy. So, yeah, I mean, he is framing this as more of a, I'll always pull up the chat on the TikTok here, as more of like a hostage negotiation, right? How did we go from Iran was the country that took hostages to now we're taking the entire country of Iran hostage, essentially, right? This was Mario Nawfal on Twitter earlier today. Oh, let me pull it over here. Shit. Every time I mess with a TikTok, it messes up my technology. Give me one sec. Okay. He's got a good visual representation of kind of all of the forces that we've deployed over to the Middle East currently. I don't know what's going on with this video, just cool stuff maybe. But this is what we've got. So part of the speculation here too is we just recently learned that the 82nd Airborne has been deployed. Those are the parachuting troops to the Middle East. So the speculation here is that Trump is either preparing to invade and take hold of Karg Oilan, which is their big oil export center in Iran, or he's just building up assets that can move quickly in the event he needs to use them. In any case, here's a good image of what we recently moved over there, okay? So you got 38 to 4,200 troops and a brigade combat team, second, third, so that's about 12 to 13,000 troops there that are brigades. Combat aviation brigades, division artillery, sustainment brigades, reconnaissance, air defenses, intelligence. Got the parachuting troops, 3 battalions of that. Maybe that's the brigade he's talking. Oh, I guess those are the parachuters up here. So, and the thing about the parachuting troops is if you were going to respond very quickly to a situation as it's evolving, let's say Iran takes a foothold somewhere along the Strait of Hormuz and cuts stuff off, those parachuting troops can go behind enemy lines. They can drop in. They're designed to move and be deployed within 18 hours of notice. They go in, they get in there, they get a stake, and they knock out any enemies, right? And they make it easier for ground troops to actually get in there and invade. So he's got a bunch of options on the table. He's got leverage. We just heard today that the Navy chief responsible for closing the Strait of Hormuz, no longer with us. No longer with us. Iran's elite Navy chief responsible for closing the Strait of Hormuz, killed in an airstrike. Yeah. And if the reports about the new Ayatollah being gay are true, he was just trying to keep something straight in Iran. He's trying to do something good for his people. I'm going to pepper in jokes throughout this thing since I didn't write any. I wrote one. Get little ad hoc jokes. Pretty crazy, though. Killed in an airstrike, so. What do we got here? Oh, this was another weird piece of news from today. Apparently, Iran has lowered the age of enlistment. I don't know if it's enlistment, but IRGC says it's lowered the minimum age for war-related support roles to 12 years old. And then there's this person on Twitter saying, not typically a sign that things are going great. If you're enlisting 12-year-olds to help with the fight. It's got a community note on it. I don't know if I want to read it. Probably somebody's like, this isn't true. Conscription, yeah, but supporting roles, so. And I could see that being open. Trump did a presser today. So he's been dropping some big pressers recently where he just drops quotes. They're canon. So, no pun intended. Here was Trump dropping a quote today about the Supreme Leader saying he's not so supreme, as it turns out.
And I said, well, now we have to take an excursion to Iran and we have to stop this maniac who's no longer with us. The Supreme Leader wasn't so supreme, no longer with us. It's very sad. But we have to stop him from...
Wasn't so supreme, as it turns out. He's doing his own ad hoc jokes there. He's throwing in a bit of stand-up in the middle of talking about murdering a rival dictator of a foreign country, right? I shouldn't have said rival dictator. Now the Democrats will run with that. We knew it! He's also been, he keeps stating over and over again that they're begging to make a deal. It's not him. They're the ones coming to him. Here's him talking about that.
Set the record straight because I've been watching the Wall Street Journal's fake news and all these stories that get printed like, oh, I want to make a deal. They are begging to make a deal, not me. They're begging to make a deal. And anybody that saw what was happening over there would understand why they want to make a deal. But they say, oh, we're not talking to them. Anybody would know that. And only a total fool. And they're not fools. They're very smart, actually, in a certain way.
Here's how Trump characterizes what the media would characterize so far as the Iran war, the forever war. He says we had to take a little detour. Maybe underplaying it a little bit, to be fair. Let's hear him discuss it.
The most investment of any country in history has been put into our country in the last year. And again, we had to take a little detour. Won't be long. Going to end soon. We had to take a little detour, go to Iran, and we had to put out a fire. Very dangerous fire that could have blown up big portions of the world, if not the whole thing.
It's kind of funny the way that he describes it. I like that he's also just managing public perception of everything and managing the markets and the world economy as he's fighting wars, right? It's probably just his TV career and everything that he's had. He's probably just got a very good, always on sort of radar for how the press is going to run with things. Kind of, But he brings up a good point, which was essentially we had to put out a fire that maybe it wasn't burning today, but at some point was going to do damage to not just us, but the rest of the world, right? Is that true? JD Vance had an interesting take on it earlier today. He's talking about how Iran already had the mentality of people running into buildings with suicide vests, blowing themselves up. Well, what happens when they get the technology to strap a nuclear weapon to a suicide vest, right? Or just a bigger bomb, right? Here's him talking about it here.
I think options. I think it's important the American people know options for what? And it's options to ensure that Iran never has a nuclear weapon. You talk about people who walk into a crowded supermarket and have a vest on, and they blow up the vest and a couple of people get killed, and that's a terrible tragedy. What happens when what's on the vest is not something that can kill a couple of people, but can kill many, many tens of thousands of people? That is the most important American national security objective that exists for any administration at any time, is you don't want the worst people in the world to have a nuclear weapon. That's why the president is doing this. That's why the president cares so much about this particular issue. When I say
almost like if people are crazy and they don't care about their own lives, you should remove them from society, right? Which we'll get into in a little bit here. We had the New York City incident where another crazy pushed a veteran into a subway, right? Again, just another fire that's burning, and at some point will come to get you, right? This was Trump talking about... He was just talking about Trump time, because I guess one of the reporters was pressing him and saying, like, how much can be done in a day or something. And he says a lot. A day in Trump time is an eternity.
I don't know yet.
Deadline for Iran, is that pushed back now, and if not?
I don't know yet. I don't know. Mr. Witkoff and JD and Jared will tell me whether or not they think it's going along. And if it's not going along, maybe not. And we have a lot of time. You know what? It's a day. In Trump time, a day, you know what it is? That's an eternity.
It's actually true, though, right? I mean, think about how crazy the news cycle has been, even in the last year compared to when Biden was in office, right? I saw a reporter talking about this the other day, and they were just saying, when Trump got reelected, they were like, okay, we're going to need to start pulling some all-nighters here, because this news is coming in hot and it's coming in fast. But it is, and I think it speaks to the volume of just shit that he gets done, in addition to his frequent press that creates stories. He's constantly doing things and doing PR at the same time, which is creating this kind of whirlwind of stories, right? And all the different leverage points that he's creating, whether it's here's 48 hours or we're going to destroy your energy plants, or here's you have a week to respond before these tariffs go into effect, right? Those are all stories that make people think, respond, and take up a lot of time. So a lot can happen in a day of Trump time, apparently. It can't be defeated. This was Trump. I like that he's still keeping up the deception. He's always big on not giving up secrets to people. This was a reporter asking him what he calls a dumb question about if he's going into Iran to take some military asset tomorrow. He responds here.
President, are you going to go in for the uranium? How do you secure Iran? And
let's assume I was or I wasn't. Why would I ever answer a question?
Can you accomplish
what kind of a question? Am I going to go in for the... Oh, yeah, I'm going in. We're going in tomorrow at 3 o'clock. How could you possibly ask a question like that and expect an answer? I don't know. But...
President, are you...
What's funny about that, though, is I feel like when I was thinking about it, those reporters do ask those dumb questions because I feel like previous administrations did answer them. Don't you guys think that? It feels to me like, just remembering, I feel like it wasn't on purpose and it wasn't to try to give up plans, but it was mostly like when I think of Obama or I think of Biden or stuff like that, I think of them more trying to publicly state what the U.S. was willing to do and what it wasn't willing to do, and where it was drawing the line between what it was morally going to, and Trump throws all that out the window, right? He says, we're not going to let you know what we're going to do. Maybe we're going to bomb the power plants. Maybe we're not. Maybe we're going to do this. He keeps all options on the table. He's managing the PR of the U.S., but not in the same way that Biden and Obama would, where they feel like the U.S. always has to look like the good guy all the time. And so they need to let you know if they're planning to go take the uranium or whatever. Or if they're not, they need to come out immediately and tell you, no, absolutely, that's not something on the U.S.'s radar. He just still here just answers ambiguously and keeps that chip on the table, which I love. This was, we talked about JD Vance and the suicide vests as being a really good case for why we did need to go into Iran. Whether it was now or later, we had to go in there at some point. Iran was like having a crazy girlfriend, right? At some point, you were going to have to break up, you know? And you know she's going to key your car. It's either today or it's tomorrow. It's when you break up with it, but it's going to happen. So you got to rip off the Band-Aid at some point, right? This was Marco Rubio with another good case for invading Iran. He makes some good points here. Just let it play for a little bit.
Well, safe. And every president says it, but we have a president that means it and does something about it. As the president outlined very clearly to the world on the night this operation began, Iran has been at war with the United States for 47 years. For 47 years, Iran has been killing Americans and attacking Americans across this planet.
And Trump noticed it, by the way. We have clips of Trump as a young man saying he would have taken Iran, right?
Other presidents had an opportunity to do something about it. And they all warned about how Iran was dangerous, but they refused to act. And this president's not someone that's going to refuse to act. He's not going to leave a danger like this in place. He's going to address it, and that is what he is doing. From the very first night of this operation, the president made it very clear. People like this, and now what I'm talking about is not the people of Iran. The people that run this country are radical Shia clerics. These are religious fanatics. Look what they are doing now. At their weakest point, this is the weakest Iran has ever been, and look at what they're doing. They're attacking embassies. They're attacking hotels. Imagine what these people would do if they had a nuclear weapon. That is an unacceptable risk for the world. By the way, the president's not just doing a favor to the United States and to our people. This is for the world. He defined...
You know, I think he brings up a really good point there, which is you could see literally what they did when they were attacked, right? They're almost like a dog backed against the wall, right? But their first plan when they were initially attacked by the U.S. was to turn around and launch missiles at like any country nearby, right? Like they just started indiscriminately firing, right? In their weakest moment, as he points out, they're still just attacking everyone indiscriminately, which just shows you what the character of that nation was, right? It was a nation of terrorists and hostages. So at some point that was going to pop off. You want to nip it in the bud here before they actually get the technology to create a nuclear weapon. They have some technology like suicide vests that they can bring in that could cause more damage, or just, you know, more likely sooner would be a long-range ballistic missile, intercontinental, that can actually reach the U.S. Because based on their talk, it sounds like they were serious about the whole death to America thing. And I suppose the other thing is it puts every other country on notice that the U.S. will take action if you threaten us. Yeah. So that's the big news. We had the other piece was this was just Trump, side note, confirming that he heard the Ayatollah was gay.
Ayatollah Jr.'s gay?
Well, they did say that, but I don't know if it was only them. I think a lot of people are saying that, which puts them off.
It's now when a lot of people are saying that. I think a lot of people are saying the Ayatollah was a little Nancy. It's a little pinky up.
To a bad start in that particular country, you know. I sort of have to smile to myself when I say I see.
That was the other funny comment. Bit of a bad start for that country, yeah. Not the way you want to start your supreme leadership as supreme. He might have been taken out by his own people, for all we know. That might have been an inside job. Might need lights in a sec. Okay, what we got next? This is the other big story. We're going to shift gears a little bit here. Should we? Yeah, we'll shift gears to it. So, crime and illegal immigration. This is the next kind of topic. Bear with me for a sec as I blast light through this apartment. Getting to be dusk in a sec. So there's two big stories. Which one should we start with? I guess let's go into this one. So this happened, I feel like it was just a couple of weeks ago, wasn't it? There was a woman, Sheridan Gorman. She was a Loyola University student who I think was just walking home from class. was murdered by an illegal immigrant. I believe the guy was from Honduras. Okay. So we've had a lot of these high-profile ones. Laken Riley was the other. This is kind of, people are calling this another Laken Riley scenario, right? She was killed. We heard yesterday that the Loyola University school paper had released an article about it, and they retracted it because apparently their school reporter accidentally referred to the guy as an illegal immigrant, and it turns out that was against their style guide. This is literally true. They issued a apology because it was against their style guide to refer to an illegal immigrant as an illegal immigrant. Then you have the family of Sheridan coming out here today and making a statement. I guess because the politicians on the left are trying to come out and say that it was a senseless tragedy, right? Somebody else had said she was just in the wrong place at the wrong time, right? No, she wasn't in the wrong place at the wrong time. She was in exactly the right place that she should have been, walking home from class. The illegal immigrant was in the wrong place at the wrong time. That's what happened, right? And now you have her family, who doesn't sound too happy about any of this, coming out and making this statement. They say, what happened to Sheridan cannot be reduced to a senseless tragedy, nor can it be explained in general terms about public safety. Okay? She was doing something entirely normal, walking near her campus with friends. She should be here. We will not allow Sheridan's life to be reduced to a talking point or a generalization. We expect leadership that is willing to confront hard truths and ensure that what happened to her does not happen again. And I thought that was really important from this statement, that her family expects leadership that is willing or even able to confront hard truths. Like, here is a hard and inconvenient truth that Loyola University might not like to hear. This was an illegal immigrant that shouldn't have even been in the country in the first place. She had every right to be at that university. He didn't have a right to be here. And that is what is causing this particular tragedy. You can make the argument, well, not all illegal immigrants obviously kill people, but then you could make the counter argument, it shouldn't have even been one, right? We should have a zero tolerance for that, right? If you had secure borders, Laken Riley would still be here and Sheridan would still be here, right? So it shouldn't be tolerated at all, period, right? At the very least, we should have strong screening that screens for, I don't know, things like criminals. Isn't it weird, too, that, you know, I remember when Trump first came out and he was talking about, you know, all the people coming in across the border, they're not sending their best people, they're sending their rapists, they're sending the murderers. Everyone just mocked him. It's kind of turning out to be more and more right as we see more and more of these cases, right? And again, it's not a generalization that it applies to every immigrant, obviously, or every illegal immigrant. But he's looking more right than he was, what was that now, 10 years ago when he first brought it up? Yeah, there are a lot of apparently murderers coming in. Turns out when you're willing to do illegal stuff like cross a border and sneak into a country, you might have a prior rap sheet too, or you might be willing to bend the law in other ways, right? In some cases. So you got that going on. You got the university ignoring reality, the politicians refusing to acknowledge the reality. Then you have this, what I would call a related story. So this was in New York, if the link will work. This was in New York, super sad story. A 4-time previously deported Honduran illegal alien has been charged with murder after he allegedly shoved an 83-year-old U.S. Air Force veteran onto subway tracks in New York City's Upper East Side. So I switched this story. This is the Honduran illegal alien. So, and this guy here, by the way, I mean, works his whole life protecting and defending his country. Was married, I think they were saying, for like 55 years, something insane like that. Lives a genuinely good life. Gets murdered by some bum who's, again, not supposed to be here, shouldn't be here. Not only was he an illegal alien, but he'd been 4 times previously deported. I believe he had a rap sheet too. We'll look at it a little bit here. he wasn't hit by the train. I believe the story was that, so this immigrant pushed like 2 different people onto these subway tracks. The first guy got up and was able to pull the older guy back up onto the subway platform after he was pushed. Believed he was okay, but apparently he got hit. He hit his head really hard. He's elderly and was brain dead almost immediately. Okay. There's a little bit of video footage of it. By the way, I don't know. Apparently this is becoming a New York pastime, just pushing people into subways. As if the subways weren't already bad enough. Now you gotta... I do this now, too. I live in downtown San Diego. Whenever I'm in front of a train or a subway, I kind of lean back from it a little bit. I put my foot out to brace. Because I just seen too many of these damn stories now. I'm like, I'm going to be ready. If somebody pushes me, they're going to tilt back. I'm going to huck their ass in there. But in any case, grandfather. Okay, what do we got here? Manhattan District Attorney's Office upgraded the charges against his alleged attacker, Honduran national Berrien Hernandez, a serial criminal with a lengthy rap sheet of at least 15 charges, according to the feds. So why is he in society at all? He's, number 1, not supposed to be here. He's, number 2, should be in prison even if he did get in. All right? And again, the reason that this is happening, and we should have a zero tolerance policy for this, right, is because you have Democrat DAs that are soft on crime. They have more compassion for murderers and rapists than they do for the actual victims, right? Because they, like in the case of Sheridan, are unwilling to confront the hard truths, the inconvenient truths of society. So... and this is a problem that is specific to liberals right now, that's specific to Democrats, Democrat DAs, Democrat politicians. You have conservatives are all about the practical truth, even if it is politically inconvenient for them, right? You have Trump going into Iran ahead of a midterm when he knows that's probably not going to look good, but he believes he needs to do something, right? You had conservatives pushing through Supreme Court decisions and stuff like that on abortion when it was politically inconvenient for them, right? But they believed that was the truth that they needed to stand behind. And then you have Democrats who are unwilling to confront the truth. It's more important for them to say the right thing than to do the right thing, right? They're not... it's more important to create the fake ideals which they believe in than to acknowledge the reality that's happening on the ground, right? So they can't say it was an illegal immigrant that shoved somebody, because that would, to them, that's like the worst thing that can happen is to disparage illegal immigrants, right? And the other thing that's happening here is you have this guy who's now arrested, right? He's probably going to jail. But the first thing that's probably going to happen is he's going to say, and his attorneys are going to say, who I'm sure he'll get free attorneys, will say, well, he was crazy, right? He's crazy. So again, we need to have compassion for this person. We can't murder him. He didn't know what he was doing. We can't lock him up in prison for the rest of his life. No. There are cases where these people who murder people, instead of even getting remanded to prison, they get sent to a facility, which is pretty comfy, where they get reevaluated throughout the rest of their lives to see if they can be released back into society again. Okay? So again, it's having compassion for the killers more than the victims, right? But here's the thing, and I said it with the Iran thing too. If you have people who are crazy, who don't understand that murder is wrong, then what's the point of even keeping them alive in the first place? What's the point of being alive in the first place? It seems to me that one of the main things that humans are here to do is to determine for themselves individually what is morally right and what is morally wrong. I mean, that kind of seems to be the whole point of everything, right? So if you're not able to participate in that critical piece of life of determining, hey, is it right or wrong for me to murder this person, then what's the point of them even being alive? What kind of a life is that? That's the compassion we show, is to keep someone alive who doesn't even understand the fundamental importance of life itself? That seems like a fate worse than death. So Matt Walsh talked about this earlier this week, I think, and he was bringing up the fact that it's just all the more reason, if somebody still murders somebody, still doesn't understand why it's wrong, that's all the more reason to kill them. I mean, honestly, remove them completely from society. And I'm sort of warming up to the idea, actually. You know, it's the same thing with Iran. If you're crazy enough to put on a vest and blow yourself up just to kill somebody, we just need to kill you and get the problem out of the rest of society. That's it. So, I don't know. The whole story is a bummer. This happened in March too. This month. This happened really recently. I feel like I've seen so many of these stories of people pushing people on subway tracks in New York that I'm like, didn't this happen a couple of years ago? No, this happened like the other week. Left brain dead, declared a homicide. Williams, this was the veteran. He loved the streets of New York and traveling in the transit system. He'd been happily married 55 years and had just won a 5-year battle with prostate cancer 6 months ago. Just giving him a new lease on life. And then there you have this stupid, very avoidable, I was going to say tragedy, but it's not even a tragedy. It's almost premeditated by the way that they run their city. Something like that's going to happen, you know. Okay, so there was something on a convenience store robbery too, just crime related. I haven't really looked at this story too much, but apparently they were saying, I guess there was a convenience store worker fighting for his life after being knocked to the ground by a shoplifter. Here's the headline we want to talk about here, right? They are calling him a shoplifter, KTLA is, who was attempting to flee an East Los Angeles business earlier this month. The shop owners told KTLA, just a shoplifter, right? And then the person in the tweet is saying, this isn't shoplifting, this is strong arm robbery. Stop trying to make all these violent criminals sound like mischievous kids taking candy from the stationery. Which, let's take a look at the video here. Yeah. He's 100% right. Fighting for his life? Yeah, he probably got a severe concussion or brain injury. I mean, look at this ridiculous shit. They got to drag this poor kid in like that, and he's just a shoplifter who was, as AOC would say, was just stealing some bread. They're just unwilling to acknowledge reality, and that's the problem. We don't fix it until we get everyone on the same page with what reality is here, right? Speaking of denying reality, this is we got some TDS news, some Trump derangement syndrome going on. This was Bruce Springsteen. He's been like super TDS recently. He's announced he's just him and his band will be doing a big tour. Of course, he just wrote this song supporting the Minneapolis protesters against ICE. Now he's saying that he's going to organize a whole tour to fight against Donald Trump's authoritarian overreach, is what he believes is happening. Let's listen in.
Minneapolis, Portland, Los Angeles, San Francisco, Phoenix, Newark, Sunrise, Florida, Austin, Chicago, Atlanta, Belmont, Long Island, Philadelphia, New York, Brooklyn, Pittsburgh, Cleveland, Boston, and Washington, D.C. The E Street Band is coming your way, and we are bringing hope over fear, democracy over authoritarianism, the rule of law over lawlessness, ethics over unbridled corruption, unity over division, and peace over war.
Had the big finish there. The dumbest part about this to me is all of the things he listed are things that Trump is doing. He's basically listing off the Republicans' platform right now. Right? Like ending authoritarian regimes, establishing the rule of law. That's exactly what Trump is doing. That's what he ran on. That's what he's doing right now, you fool. But, I mean, it's a combination of mental derangement over... You know, the reality is, these liberals, they don't even truly believe that Trump is an authoritarian or a dictator. I think in some cases they do. They just don't like him because he's strong, right? What it is, I think, is it's kind of like when your favorite basketball team is rivals all of a sudden with a team that trades for LeBron. I think it's literally a tribal thing where they're just like, they hate the fact that he's a super strong leader. I think that's all it boils down to, is they're like, damn, that guy's good. They acknowledge it a little bit in their minds, but to them, then they just have to talk crap about him, right? They have to be like, oh, he's an authoritarian, he's a this and that. Because the reason they hate him is because he's working for the other side and they know he's so good. They know he's the GOAT. They already know it. But I don't know what you do with that. I mean, it's fan fiction for the most part. Liberals have fan fiction that they like to believe, and their news organizations create it for them. Here's The Economist. Someone says, proof that The Economist lives in an alternate universe. Listen to this. The Economist headline: a month of bombing Iran has achieved nothing. Will Donald Trump escalate or talk? For now, at least, the advantage lies with the Islamic Republic. Advantage Iran? Is this a real thing here? What the... Is there newsroom based in Iran? Is this the next Ayatollah writing this? Like, what the hell? First of all, it's all backwards. They framed Trump as, will he escalate or talk? Like, he's the terrorist. He's literally murdering a terrorist regime right now, right? Just a couple of weeks ago, I mean, you had liberals were all up in arms about free Palestine and you shouldn't, we got to free those protesters. All of a sudden, you have Iran slaughtering thousands of protesters. Trump comes in and you could say liberates them, right? That's a way to frame it. And Democrats silent. Democrats look at that actually and they're like, oh no, Trump is a murdering authoritarian. They're like, we need to stop this murderous regime. Trump. I'm talking about Trump, not the Iranians. What the hell is that? So they frame everything exactly backwards. And it's unclear if it's just on purpose or if they actually believe it. That's the crazy part. They could actually believe it. Deciding where to go next in the news. Go to a weird little story. This was just an idea I had. This was somebody, I guess it's kind of related because I'm going to talk about voting. But, that's a spoiler alert. But I guess somebody was airing some footage. It's March. We recently had spring break. And somebody was airing some footage, I guess, to make fun of some of these kids that are out partying. It's probably Miami or something like that. They were asking them political questions. And the kids are just like, their answers are all stupid. Here, listen.
What issue facing America is the most important to you?
What bikini I'm gonna wear next? Obesity is terrible.
Ice. Not personally. I'm legal.
Getting a tan on the beach. That's the most important thing in my life right now.
I'm thinking about Starbucks, to be honest.
Yeah, so all of the answers are just like, my tan, my bikini, I think about Starbucks. So people are making fun of him. This guy comes out, says, counterpoint, these kids are more or less fine. They're drunkenly enjoying their spring break. Better to be socializing and partying with friends in real life than doom scrolling on X. That's like what I do. He's probably right. Which I say is true. I agree with him here. I say I agree, but then they shouldn't vote. Controversial take. Raise the voting age to 30. Which even to me when I say it sounds crazy. But the more I thought about it, I was like, it's actually not a bad idea. Because here's my problem, is I feel like a lot of the reason why Democrats are even in power ever during periods at all is because you have this younger voting bloc voting who doesn't give a fuck about anything. I agree, this is a great use of their time. They're kids, they're in college, right? In your 20s, your early 20s, mid-20s, you should be partying and doing spring break and trying to meet people, right? That's pretty much all you should care about. They're right to care about their Starbucks and their tans and all that stuff. But that's that same mentality. That's why you have abortion legal all throughout the United States, can never be questioned, right? Because the main supporters of abortion are the same people who don't want any personal responsibility, right? Of course it makes sense for the younger crowd to be like, yeah, we want to keep abortion legal, right? because they're in a very hedonistic, very selfish decade of their lives. They're not really thinking about the future of the U.S. in any other sense other than how does it pertain to them and their personal, individual, hedonistic freedoms, right? Which, again, I think is fine, but then why are we allowing them to vote? And you might say, okay, you want to raise the voting age to 30. How are you going to do that if you're taxing them? How are you going to do that if they can join the military, right? They can join the military, they get taxed, but they can't vote. That's taxation without representation. So I would change my proposal and say, okay, raise the voting age to 30, but you also don't tax them until they're 30. 30 would be the age when taxes start, which would be cool, right? And then the caveat would be they can vote if they join the military. That's my big caveat. Raise the voting age to 30 unless you're active duty military. If you're active duty military, you get to vote. You get the right earlier, right? Because you have some skin in the game. You then have a reason to care about what happens to your country. And you have a sense of accountability and a sense of, you know, what's right to do for the welfare of others, right? I just think it's a bad idea to have people who are primarily concerned, who are completely don't know what's even going on in politics, literally have no idea about the world. When I think about how I was in my 20s, I didn't know shit about shit, right? But it's only something you realize when you get a little older and you look back and you go, oh, I was dumb. That actually happens every decade, by the way. You just look back and you're like, oh, I was still dumb. Oh, I thought I was smart. I still was dumb. It turns out you're just dumb until you die, kind of. But you get a little less dumb. You get used to detecting the BS in life, which is useful, right? So certainly my opinions have changed almost 180 since I was in my 20s. I used to be a liberal, right? Because I was in that liberal phase of life. I only cared about myself, right? Older you get, the more you start caring about politics and others, really, and having a sense of accountability. So I think that would be a good thing. We get some fraud news. So Nick Shirley is back at it. He's in California. This was him. He's trying to expose the hospice fraud. And this is just a crazy clip. He's rolling up on this alleged hospice that is just, it looks like it's in a motel. I mean, literally. It looks like it's just a printed sign on a motel door. And you can just hear from the guy's responses that he's a joke, whoever's working here. We'll listen in real quick.
Statement about what's going on here? Nothing? Because it seems like it was pretty good family business. Another guy just pulled out in the M8 competition.
Good for them, bro. Why are you guys pocket watching, bro? Leave the fucking people alone.
Because this is taxpayers' dollars that are paying.
Leave the people alone. Just their immediate defense is always like they're the victims. And or it's racism, right? There's a white guy, so he's just saying, leave the people alone. I don't know what pocket watching is. He's complaining apparently that they're like filming him.
For all this stuff.
Okay. What the fuck is the dead ass just working, bro?
Dead ass working, bro. I'm dead ass just working right now, bro.
With taxpayers' dollars receiving money from Medicare, Medicaid, Medi-Cal, you name it. And it just seems like a lot of people are getting rich off of
I'm busy, bro. I have work.
the death of old people. What do you do for work here?
Bro.
I mean, if you were an actual business, wouldn't you easily answer that question and be like, oh yeah, come take a look. Yeah, right now I'm going through all this paperwork. I've got all these patients I'm dealing with. Yeah, I can show you right now what I do. If someone rolled up to my work and was like, what do you do here? I could be like, yeah, here's all the crap I do all day, right? Pretty easy. Unless you're standing in a motel room in a sweatshirt being like, I'm dead ass working right now.
Sad to think about it. Here in the United States, we're literally being defrauded by people who are taking advantage of old people, young people in daycares, disabled people with autism clinics, and no one's doing anything to stop it. So I think it's time.
So that's Nick Shirley. Interestingly enough, you have Candace Owens, who's been like super conspiracy theorist. Recently, they say, wow, Candace Owens launches a surprising attack on citizen journalist Nick Shirley. In her latest episode, she dismisses his hard-hitting investigative reporting as stupid, dumb, and completely made up. She even mocks him for being a nice-looking white boy who couldn't possibly infiltrate or expose these stories on the ground. Maybe it's because her ass doesn't actually go anywhere, but...
Read as a nice-looking white boy.
To find myself on top of Brazil's largest favela in a destroyed house, interviewing gang members of one of the largest gangs in Brazil.
Okay, I'm just gonna say I don't believe that at all. I'm sorry. I just, it's so stupid. I'm not even gonna tell you why I don't believe it. It's like if you don't know that that's stupid, that he infiltrated the gang in 48 hours. It's just, that's so dumb. I'm so tired of dumb. That's not how that works, okay? You don't just go up to gangs on the street as a nice-looking white boy with a camera and say, hey, I just wanted to sort of see what you're doing here. What's going on? Okay, just stop. That's stupid. Of course, that's dumb. I'm sorry, Nick. I know you're young. I hope, whoever is your contact that has you infiltrating Antifa and infiltrating El Salvador at the age of 23 years old, it just feels like Sean Penn young to me. Like, oh, Sean Penn's always there.
To find my...
Now that I actually see the clip, I kind of actually see the context of what she's saying a little bit more. She believes he's got backing. That's what this guy's just being all crazy. Reason I was bringing it up is because Tim Pool, I guess he doesn't like Candace Owens. And so he was saying that he thought that she was an op, right? Like she's being paid to say these things. I don't think she's an op, actually. My take on her is, I mean, this seems to be a real opinion. She probably just doubts that he's able to walk into this gang and join it like that, which is true. I thought she was talking about the fraud reporting. This joining the favela gang. I've heard other people mention that Nick Shirley might have some type of backing, some type of support, which doesn't denigrate the reporting that he's doing at all. It's just, it is probably a little more difficult to actually get into a gang and infiltrate than just being a solo YouTuber. But I think what Candace does, and why she tends to take all of these crazy opinions on different stuff, I think she's just really good at following the clicks. When I see her talking about Erica Kirk and Charlie Kirk and that's a conspiracy and all this stuff, I think she's primarily motivated with money, and I think she's very good at knowing how to get views and get money. And I think that is her primary motivation above pretty much all else. When you look at Candace, she used to be a liberal commentator, right? Like, so she started off as the exact opposite, right? Then she pivoted to being a conservative commentator when that's where all the clicks and the views were, right? And now she's sort of pushing back against several different conservative voices because I think she's good at creating those kind of talking points. I think she actually has a point here, which is I'd like to know how he infiltrated that gang. The hospice fraud and stuff, he could do that on his own, but this is a little trickier. So I think Candace is actually super smart. She's just motivated with clicks and money and views. That'd be my explanation. What else we got? I'm gonna wrap it up here in a second. Some tech news. We got bird drones. Remember all those reports about cameras and birds? Wasn't that the story? Apparently a surveillance drone reportedly flown by infiltrator elements, this was Iran, was spotted. It's supposed to designed to look like an eagle. You guys see it? Infiltrator drone, a bird drone. Someone says, we have got to start apologizing to the schizophrenic community. Which is true. What was the story? Wasn't it like birds had cameras in them? Now they do. I feel like you're going to see a lot more of this stuff as the technology rapidly advances. Just things. We heard there's AI cows yesterday. They have collars that guide them with like a geo fence rather than having to put up physical fences. Now you got bird drones. You see a lot more of this stuff, this blending of nature with technology as we further advance. No, don't need the sound. What else? What else? What else? Could get into that. I haven't looked into this story too much yet, just this initial tweet, but apparently there was an ICE agent, they're stationed at the airports by Trump now. Trump doing his best to improve the PR of those ICE agents at the airports. Of course, he had them remove their masks so they're more public-facing and friendly in that specific scenario. They were handing out waters the other day. Reporting now that DHS tells Fox News that an ICE agent saved the life of a 1-year-old boy who had gone unresponsive and wasn't breathing while waiting in a TSA line at JFK Airport yesterday. Shows the boy's father panicking. ICE agent runs over to help. ICE agent assessed the boy, performed the Heimlich on him, and he began breathing again and made a full recovery. So, you know, ICE couldn't look better at the airport so far. I mean, they are doing some pretty good. I feel like I would love just seeing ICE agents at an airport. Wouldn't that make you feel just more secure and better than just the regular TSA agents? I feel like it's probably better than it's ever been there. All right, that's pretty much the stories for tonight. That's all we got. If you like the show, subscribe on YouTube for sure. I need more subscribers on there to try and get some money from this damn thing. Or I'm also on like Kick and Twitch, Rumble. I'm on, so I live stream on all of those. Not always on TikTok or Facebook and stuff like that. I do that every once in a while, and they kick me off too. So if you like it, support it, share the show with friends, or you send it to them. I also have a Substack if you like newsletters. I send out a newsletter every morning, like 6 a.m. my time, or a little earlier actually. That goes out that basically recaps all the show notes that I go over here. So if you missed a show, shows Monday through Friday at 6 p.m. Pacific time. So every Monday through Friday, 6 p.m. Pacific time, that's 9 p.m. Eastern, you can catch the show live. And if you miss it, you can sign up for the Substack, get the newsletter the following morning. It'll go over all the bullet points we discussed, okay? So thank you for joining us, and chat next time. The chat's open too, and I'll respond to stuff. But other than that, have a good rest of your night, and thanks.